Welcome to another edition of Director 101. Basic things that happening for the camper. They are looking for a camp that is where you're able to meet, eat, sleep, play, and consider. In fact, when you're going around and taking a tour, from a camper's perspective, these are the big ones that they want to get the answers to. What does the meeting room look like? What kind of food are we going to be able to eat? What kind of mattress am I going to sleep on? What are we going to be able to do when we're there? And will this be a place where we can take the truth of God's word and really consider it for our lives? So from the camper standpoint, they're looking at all of these. Now, in order for us to do these, there is within their camp zone, the camp zone being their main spot that they're in their camp zone, there is their regular play things, but there's also what I'm going to call a common activity. We've also got a whole nother big area, almost probably as big as this spot, is your operations. This is everything from shops and offices, all your behind the scenes, the treasure yard, all of those things are there. There's another big one that not every camp has: staff housing. So these are the huge components that when you are putting together a master plan or figuring out where everything's going to fit, you have to figure out this for the camper. And then you've got to figure out these two things for your operations team. Think in terms of when you design a kitchen, you're looking at that triangle. You're looking at that refrigerator, that oven, and the sink. Those three big things are the things that you kind of fit everything inside. Here's your big three when you are working on a plan for your camp zone: where they're going to meet, where they're going to sleep, and the eat one you would think is that third one, but it actually can live on the outside if you wanted to. I'm going to say where you're going to play is your big three. So if we're going to put this on a map, here's what it looks like. You've got your meeting room right here. Wherever that might be, here is meet. So now I need to figure out my sleep. So I might put a couple of cabins over here, and then might put a couple of cabins over here. Now my play is going to sit here and say, okay, let's put the store or the game room or something like that in this space. At our camp, that might be our human foosball is within that spot. But what I'm trying to do is create this kind of area where now this is kind of where everything takes place. Now, if I were going to do eat, and I was only going to work with this one, I would probably put eat here or here, creating that space with eat. But one of the things that's really interesting, and it's kind of interesting with the way we work with different groups, is that it's possible to put your eat over here, within walking distance, not so far that they have to travel to, that they have to get in their car to get there. But let's say that eat is right here. What that now means is that I could have multiple groups. I could put another triangle together here, another triangle together over here that is making their way to this eat spot. This is the most expensive square footage on your property. This is the one that's hardest to staff. And so if you're going to serve multiple groups, then trying to figure out where they can all come together to eat becomes your hub space. Let's jump back to where the camper is at. He's meeting, he eats over here, he sleeps right here, he plays in that spot. Where do we put the consider? Needs to happen on this back side. When I am letting go of this meeting room and I'm wanting them to get to a spot where they can think about all the truth that they have heard, I don't want them heading towards where we're playing. I don't want them heading back towards their cabin. I want them stepping off to the edge of our camp zone, not out of it, but on the edge of it, where it's almost like the meeting room acts as a buffer to everything else that is going on. So now I've got my consider taken care of, I've got my play, my sleep, my eat, and my meet. Now let's talk a little bit about play, because I can't put my shooting range in there. That's not a good spot. Within the triangle right here, this is your A zone of activities. That means an A zone activity means that I could be sitting down here anywhere and see that activity going on and would think to myself, that does look kind of fun. And they step up and they get involved in that activity. There's another zone of activities, and we're going to call that our B zone. So B zone is far enough away that they have to walk to it, not so far that they would have to drive to it, but it's not part of their fellowship area. In fact, it could be used by some of these other camp zones. They all are going to have their own meet, and they're going to have their own sleep, and then they're going to have their own play, and they're going to have their own A zone activities, but then they would be able to walk to this B zone. For us, that's our Horsa area. That's the lake. That's even the craft area. It's outside of anybody's immediate fellowship area, their zone of camp, but it's in a spot where they're able to walk to it and make their way to it. Now there's a whole nother category, and this is your C zone. C zone is so far out there that there has to be some type of wagon, tractor that comes and picks everybody up and takes them to this away location that's way far away. Now that's a fun thing. That's your, your breakfast cookout spot. That might be a place where you that you hike to and see the stars. But the transportation part of it means that you actually have to all come together in your A zone in order to make your way out to a C zone activity. Again, the C zone is just a matter of scheduling for these other groups to be able to use it, to make sure you're not trying to all use it at the same time. I find when I have kind of been able to just map out what I'm looking for, what I'm trying to see this thing do, that tells me where my meeting place needs to be, where I'm able to play, where my cabins need to be. We like to put our cabins in a bit of a cluster where they're clustered together there. It does mean that the most valuable square footage there on the property is this square footage right here. This area that's within that triangle, you've just got to be really careful that you use that area really well. That you're using that entire space because you can walk to all of it. It's so valuable. One thing that I really try to help people understand is that whatever the size of your meeting room is, let's say this meeting room can handle 100 people. Out in your A zone, out in this fellowship area, you need 150 chairs there. 150% of whatever your meeting room can handle, that's what you need to have out there in your fellowship area. So that when people walk outside, they're like, oh, I could do that, or I could just sit here and relax and enjoy the quiet of God's creation. So as we are thinking about adding a fourth camp zone here at Ironwood, and we've got a little bit of space that we're saying, okay, we would put it right here. These are the things that we are working through to figure out where everything should go so that you have a well-planned camp zone.